Welcome back to the program. So real briefly, I put up the Elon Musk video with Joe Rogan, 20 minutes or so of it, because I wanted you to hear for yourselves how deep the grift goes. I mean, these quote-unquote non-government organizations may say they're non-government, but they are 100% funded, operated, and lobbied by the federal government. Okay, so there's no distance of an NGO to the federal government. That's one lie that they put out there. But the other thing is it's the grift. It's been going on for 75, 80 years, and no one has been able to talk about it. No one's been able to decipher it. You know, every year, Rand Paul and some of these others, Thomas Massey, they come up with these things every year, and they talk about all the spending and wasteful spending, and they highlight the most egregious kind, but nothing ever happens from there. Now, different story. Things are definitely happening. But what's interesting is that Congress then takes the money, they pass whatever it is, whatever bill it is, whatever money it is, and then they give it to these quote-unquote NGOs. Then the NGOs then go and find the illegal aliens, and they bring them into the country. So we're paying with our own taxpayer dollars to be infiltrated. That's right. And then what happens is they take the extra money, and that NGO starts another NGO and gives that money to the next NGO. And then that NGO lobbies Congress, gets more money, and they always come up with a crazy name, kind of like what Elon said, the Ministry of, Ethics, or, whatever, the Truth Institute, whatever it might be. And then the next one happens, and then the next one happens, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And eventually, all of our money is going to all these NGOs, and they are going around the globe finding these people and dragging them into the country. So these NGOs need to stop. They need to stop immediately, and hopefully they will. Now, we all saw the State of the Union address or address to Congress, whatever it is, right? It's not a State of the Union address with President Trump. It's never going to be an address to Congress, right? It's never going to be like that. It's always going to be what? It's going to be a rally. That's what he is. That's what he does. He goes there, he gets in front of the mic, and he tells you every great thing that he's ever done, which is, again, all of his accomplishments in 45 days, and rightfully so. But the most powerful part, honestly, was the part when he went through some of this ridiculous spending. That was a really smart thing to do, because there's a lot of Americans that don't pay attention, that don't watch politics like we do, are not engaged in the process on a daily basis, and they just tuned in just to say what's going on. They see President Trump talking about all these crazy things that they're spending money on, and then they hear that there's 200-year-olds, still getting paychecks, and the American people are going, what the hell? They're shocked, and they should be. So that was the best part. And by the way, whatever the left's tactics were, they didn't work anyway. Obviously, they threw out the demonic werewolf, Al Green, but the bottom line is, 76% of people that watched it enjoyed what President Trump was saying. They agreed with him. Only 23% didn't, and that's the political class that we don't care about anyway. So again, it was a smashing success. Why? Because it was a rally. That's why. And what do we love? We love a Trump rally. You see, that's what we understand that the majority of America does not. They only saw it probably one other time. And that was in his acceptance speech at the RNC, which again was the longest acceptance speech. Well, this was the longest address to Congress. Why? Because it was a rally. That's why. And that's good, because the American people get to see that. And there's no filter. There's no CNN. There's no MSLSD or ABC or NBC. No. It is straight and right to the people. And when it's straight and right to the people, and the prostitutes can't get in the way of it, the American people like what they're hearing and seeing. But let's face it, who stole the show? Definitely this young black patriot, this little kid that has suffered tremendously. 13 operations on his brain, this poor kid. His name is DJ. And obviously, great parents, you can tell. He's well-mannered, he's a patriot, he's a good kid. They made him the honorary police officer, and then they made him an honorary, I think, co-director or something like that of the Secret Service. But he kind of stole the show. He really did. He was there. He gave the other young kid a hug when he got into West Point. But look, the Democrats are who they are. Did they clap for this kid? No. He had 5 months to live. Did they clap? No. Because why? Because Trump brought him. I mean, they're so immature and they're so childish. It's ridiculous. When the parents that lost loved ones from illegal alien crime, did they stand up? This is not partisan. This is human nature. You should care for your fellow Americans, regardless of what stripe or what type of party they belong to. But they didn't even do that. So you know what? The American people got an opportunity to see exactly who the Democrats are. And as I have said, as way back as 2019, I have called them and their tactics terroristic in nature. I mean, what would you call a group of people or a party that murders babies on the day they're born or before they're born? I would say that's pretty much a terrorist, would you not? What would you call a party that wants to disarm everybody and then drag people from other countries to come into the country to kill your fellow Americans? I would assume you would say, as I would, that they're terrorists. And that's why I have said for the longest time that I do not see a difference between an actual terrorist organization and the modern day version of the party. I just don't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not. And so it's not a label that I'm giving, it's a label that they're earning based on their ideology, based on their actions or inactions in many cases. And so therefore, that's who they are. Okay? But let's get back to this young patriot, this young kid. So here you are. This is DJ, and here is what little DJ has to say.
The craziest part, because my mom bathes me and my brothers all together, and out of nowhere I locked up, and then my dad was calling my name, and I started going to the slow thing, and he said, "Stop playing with me," and then I started to act, I ain't gonna lie, I started to act slow, and then as soon as he said that, we was speeding all the way, running lights, going to the hospital, and then next thing you know, I was seizing on the table. They said, "Nah, we gonna have to go in his brain tonight." Ever since then, I had 13 brain surgeries, and that's how many times my personality has changed. And that's something that you don't hear from a terminally ill child. They had 5 months to live. I'm gonna keep on going until my gas tanks run out. And that's when God calls you home. You never know when God's gonna call you home. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my dad. And I know he's pretty proud of me, and I'm pretty proud of him too. And I'd like to thank President Trump, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here today.
Unreal.
But you wanna know
and there's another video of him, and he's very wise beyond his years. You know, obviously, when you deal with something so traumatic like that, it ages you considerably, especially when you're young. And he said that he's a, quote, 50-year-old man trapped in a 13-year-old body. And so all I can say is I just hope and pray, and my prayers are with him, that he's able to live a long, fruitful, and healthy life. Amen. So, good kid, real good kid. The way he treated, you know, the gentleman, the younger kid who got into West Point, gave him a big hug. You could tell, good parents on this one. So anyway, let's talk about some of these cuts and DOGE and everything else. You know, we're finding out a lot of stuff. And as we're finding out this stuff, the left is going crazy, number one. Number two, they're not talking about what we're finding. They're just talking about how we're doing it. And yes, we are taking a chainsaw to the federal bureaucracy, and that's exactly what we should be doing. You know, as Elon pointed out, you know, he's not a threat to the democracy, which again, I hate that word because it doesn't exist. He's a threat to the bureaucracy, and he should be, okay? But here's the thing. There are now other ways to get around the Supreme Court and these left-wing radical extremist judges that are probably getting money from some of these NGOs and some of these government agencies, which is why they are overstepping their boundaries and trying to stop President Trump, which of course they can't do because it'll be appealed and it'll be reversed at the next level and everything else anyway. And if the Supreme Court decides that, we should continue with this spending, I don't think so, Supreme Court. That's not going to work either. And there are ways to get around it. And one of the ways to get around it is using a rule from 1974. It's a budget law on rescission. And rescission meaning to take back expenditures that have been allocated by Congress. And how does it work? Well, I'm going to explain it to you. But first and foremost, it works by basically having the president submit to Congress a rescission of certain amounts of money or fraud or abuse or whatever it might be. And then Congress has 45 days to act on it. And if they don't act on it, then sadly, all of that stuff has to be paid for. But let me read a little bit further into this, okay? So GOP senators are now pitching Elon Musk and DOGE, and even President Trump for that matter, on using 1974 budget law to cut spending. Here's how this works. Senate Republicans called on the Trump administration on Wednesday to use the formal rescissions process to claw back money already appropriated by Congress that the Department of Government Efficiency has identified as wasteful. So let me stop right there. So we know that there's been billions upon billions upon billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse. And you can just throw anything out there. Sesame Street in Iraq, whatever. Transgender surgeries in Mozambique, whatever it might be. We know that it doesn't help taxpayers. We know that we're paying for it, and we know that it doesn't help the United States of America. So we can categorize that as wasteful spending. So what they can do is they can submit that in their report, and then they can ask for the president to send a rescission so that they can claw back that money. Okay? Does that make any sense? It will in here in a second. It's also a way to avoid legal setbacks that have befallen this White House in its push to freeze agency budgets and programs, including foreign aid accounts. So, for instance, today, the Supreme Court said that part of the spending cuts that they found at USAID need to be put back. And I say, I don't think so, Supreme Court. We're not going to listen to you. You know why? Because Joe Biden set the precedent already that said we will obey things that we like and disobey things that we don't like. And guess what? The Supreme Court never did anything about it. So there is legal precedent now to tell the Supreme Court to go shove it. And what we're going to do instead is we're going to ignore you, and we're going to cut what we're going to cut, and we're going to fire who we're going to fire, and you're not going to say anything about it, Supreme Court. What do you think of that? So let's see. One day after President Donald Trump singled out small dollar examples of waste in his joint address to Congress, the de facto leader of the DOGE effort, Elon Musk, came to the Capitol to soothe concerns over how some of the cuts have been implemented. Many lawmakers have expressed alarm at the wholesale gutting of agencies and the firing of thousands of federal employees. Well, too bad, okay? Too bad. As I said, there's already precedent to fire anyone in the government. I don't care who you are. No judge can step in and say, you can't be fired, okay? That's a fact. Why is it a fact? Well, just ask Stephen Miller, Sean Spicer, and yes, Joe Biden. Why? Because Joe Biden fired Sean Spicer with 2 months left to go, where he was on some type of board of directors or whatever. Stephen Miller was smart enough to take the lawsuit, knowing he was going to lose the lawsuit on purpose to do what? To set precedent. The Supreme Court stepped in and said, Joe Biden, as fake president, you have the right to fire anyone you want. So guess what? There is legal precedent to fire anyone. Next. So let's see. It says, hoping to regain some of their power of the purse, senators asked Elon Musk at a private lunch to have the White House submit a rescissions package for congressional approval for any funding that it deems fraudulent or wasteful. Congress would then have 45 days to approve that request, or else, sadly, the money must be spent and appropriated once the clock would run out. What we have to do as Republicans is capture their work product, put it in a bill, and vote on it, Senate Budget Chairman Lindsey Graham told reporters. So the White House, I am urging them to come up with a rescission package. Look, I'm no fan of Lindsey Grahamnesty at all. I can't stand him, and I hope Nancy Mace runs for the Senate eventually and takes him out of the Senate or somebody else more conservative. But right now, as the Budget Committee Chairman, this is brilliance. Graham said that Musk was receptive to the idea and actually had no idea about this rescission process was even available as a tool to cut spending. He was going and jumping up and down and raising his fists in the air in a triumphant gesture, Graham said. So it's time for the White House now to go on offense. We're losing altitude here, and the way that you can regain altitude is to take the work product, get away from the personalities and the drama, take the work product and vote on it. Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, said that he asked Elon Musk to consider a rescissions bill of at least $100 billion and perhaps a series of such bills that could ultimately claw back as much as $500 billion of already appropriated funds. He said that such a move also might make those of us who are very skeptical about the reconciliation package adding to the debt, that they might be a little bit more open to it if we were actually going to make the spending cuts real and permanent. Okay? The rescissions process also holds appeal for Republicans because, check it out, it only requires a simple majority. We don't need the 60 vote threshold that we normally would. It's a simple majority vote in the Senate for approval. And it's better than the Impoundment Act. Paul and Graham said that rescission process and potential further clawbacks as part of the separate budget reconciliation process Republicans are undertaking could avoid the messy legal fight over the 1974 budget law that restricts a president's ability to impound or freeze appropriated funds. Trump and his budget director, Russ Vought, have said they regard that law as unconstitutional. Efforts to freeze funding in various agencies have already triggered court challenges. So if we do lose in court, we're bound by it, Graham told reporters after the lunch on Wednesday. You don't need to use the Impoundment Control Act. You have rescission and reconciliation. Take these two tools and use them. Use them. Paul said Wednesday morning Supreme Court's ruling that lifted the administration's hold on roughly $2 billion in foreign aid spending was an indication that the administration wasn't on solidly legal ground. We had a ruling this morning from the Supreme Court that seems to be pushing towards that there needs to be a rescission, that they're not going to be able to just impound. I thought the court would actually let them impound it until September 30th, until the end of the year. They're already saying no, it's going back to the lower court, Paul said. So my message to Elon Musk was, let's get over the impoundment idea. Let's send it back as a rescission package, because then we'll get 51 senators or 50 senators plus J.D. Vance to cut the spending permanently. The last time an all GOP Washington tried to claw back funding with a rescissions bill was in 2018 during Trump's first term. That $15 billion cuts package, vastly smaller than what Paul's talking about now, barely passed the House with a much larger Republican majority, allowing them to lose 19 votes on their side. But it couldn't get through the 51-49 Senate after two Republicans voted with the Democrats to block the measure on a procedural vote. One of those Republicans is sadly still in the Senate, current Appropriations Chair Susan Collins, Republican of Maine. But even that effort, which was specifically authorized under the 1974 law that Congress had passed, viewed as eroding too much of lawmakers' power over the purse, I see this as an institutional issue, Collins said at the time. This time there are 53, baby, that's right. 50. There should be 57 because they stole 4 of them. There's 53 GOP senators now, giving rescission proponents much, much, much more of a cushion. But the cuts under consideration are much, much larger. Paul said that Trump needs to, quote, expend his energy to make this happen, as opposed to in 2018 when it didn't appear that the White House's heart was really into it. We lost that battle then, but I don't think that they tried very hard. I don't think that they came and they even lobbied us. I don't think that they came and they even talked to us, Paul said. Senators also expressed some frustration about being kept in the dark as departments and agencies fire these workers. So let's stop right there. There is a way to cut as much as $500 billion. And we don't have to wait till 2026. We don't have to wait till later on this year or anything like that. We can do it right now. And let this be not a threat to these people, but an annoyance and an intimidation tactic. If you think Collins or Murkowski or any one of these other two-bit scumbag idiots out there are going to get in the way, you're sadly mistaken. Because number one, Elon Musk should be working as the enforcer here and basically telling these senators, if you don't sign on these spending cuts, your careers are over. It's as simple as that. He's got the money, the power, and the clout to put them out. And if they dare even think of voting against it, I will start the largest online campaign of harassment they've ever seen. We will show up at 3 o'clock in the morning in front of your house, legally across the street where it is legal to do so. We will be in your grill constantly. We will be constantly following you. We will be following you everywhere you go. We will find where you are and we will make a scene. We will make your lives miserable if you do not do what we say, which is to cut the federal government. That's what we're going to do. So hopefully Elon Musk will be the enforcer, the consigliere, as I've called him before. And we're going to make sure that we get these cuts done and make sure that they're permanent. And we don't need Congress. We need Congress, but we don't need these judges to get in the way. And we don't need the Supreme Court to get in the way. All we need is 51 votes, 50 with Vance. So let this be a warning to the RINOs. You best get in line or else. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.